Welcome, everyone. As I think everyone knows, this is a live podcast, so feel free to laugh, cry, show emotions, clap, but hopefully question and answers, if you can keep them to the end, that would be awesome. Welcome, Naman. Good to have you on Entrepreneur Stories. It's taken us a while to get this one set, and we managed to squeeze it in before the upcoming typhoon, which is awesome. So it's a funny thing because I sit here as a 52-year-old who's been an entrepreneur for about 7 years, and I'm sitting with a 24-year-old who's been an entrepreneur for longer than me. You started your journey at 13, and I wanted to ask you, is entrepreneurship a drug, and are you addicted?
Well, I live with the belief that salary is a drug and you should not be addicted to it.
Salary is a drug and you should not be addicted to it. I like that.
So for me, I was born in a business family, in a community of business families.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a sin if you do a job. So I would say that I was born and raised with the idea that you have to work for yourself.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about your sort of family background and where that, I guess, education or sort of dialogue about entrepreneurship came from, and how that sort of influenced you in the choices that you've made. Because you did go to university, right? You didn't drop out of school and become an entrepreneur, even though you were an entrepreneur at 13.
Yeah. Well, in hindsight, I did want to do it. I did want to drop out of university, but I had Indian parents to convince. So that was the only negotiation which I was bad at. So I did not even try. But starting out, right, like I was, again, born in Delhi, India. Mm-hmm. My family has migrated all over the country for better opportunities, but I was one of the only kids in a very large joint family to be born in a metropolitan city like Delhi. Born in something very simple, humble, middle-class family, We were always like, we want to earn more. But, I think what I really learned growing up was the value of altruism. Like, even if you don't have a lot, but you keep giving, because there are people who definitely have less than you as well. So that's something I grew up with. But this surname I carry is basically from a community of people in India who are just known to be, business people, businessmen. And that's why every dinner table conversation I was on was about entrepreneurship, business, finance, stock market going up, stock market going down. That was my, early education about entrepreneurship. Like, my summer vacation was my grandparents' house and then accompanying my, father to his shop. Like, I would sit there, I would do my holiday homework there, but it's the subconscious learnings of just watching him sell, early in those days. And I think all of those really form this foundation of me and who I have become today. So, yeah, I think from a family setup, there was education, but there was never really, like a pressing emphasis on education that you have to be, how the typical Asian parents say that you have to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or any of these meritocratic degrees. There was just that, get the education because you must, but it was really about getting the real life experiences and the learning around it. And I think the biggest thing which was different in my family setup from others in an Asian setup was that, in a general Asian setup, it's usually the male superior which manages all the finances of the family, like that one person who will manage everything. My father was like, everyone manages their own money. And I was taught about the importance of like saving and, investing in stocks and compounding when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. So that was very unique. That was very different. And that's why when I was 13 and when I saw like, I know so much about this, I bought a stock at 11, and it was so normal to me, but I would see none of my friends around me are talking about that.
Yeah.
And that led to the first company.
It's super interesting because every Indian family that I've come into contact with, and I've come into a lot of into contact with a lot of Indian families because my grandparents are from Mumbai and, I grew up around a lot of Indian people. Education is always given a real priority. But you're right that most Indian parents sort of look beyond that and say, well, become a doctor, become a lawyer, become an accountant, go into banking. These are kind of the stereotypical paths. So to be encouraged to go into entrepreneurship straight from education is kind of unique. What is it that you enjoy most about being an entrepreneur?
I think it's the responsibility and the accountability that, like, I think these are just some of the early golden nuggets which I was told. Like, you know that you have the skills, you have the knowledge, but then you will put these skills and knowledge so that someone else can become rich. And that's just something which I was always told that don't do that, right?
Yeah.
You have the skills, you have the knowledge, put it to work and work as hard as you can to make yourself rich.
Okay.
So money is one motivation, but I think it's really the fact that you own your own efforts, right? If something goes bad, you're accountable. If something goes well, you're accountable. So I think that feeling of being in control, and I think a lot of my personality has, become convoluted with this idea of entrepreneurship, because even in roles where I was not supposed to be the leader, I emerge as a natural leader. I love to take a position where, I can assume a position of leadership because I like that situation of being in control.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've kind of picked up from listening to you speak and just looking at things that you've written or been said about you, you've always kind of focused on solving a problem. Where does that come from? Does it come from the fact that early on you mentioned that your family always gave a little bit to charity or to people less fortunate? And I think in India, that's something that it's right in front of you all day, every day. So it's something that I think people who do achieve a certain status in life in India almost feel like they have to do it because they see it all around them, right? You don't, in Hong Kong, you have a lot of poverty, but it's not visible.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious on that whole sort of problem solving and how that played into the entrepreneurial decisions and the entrepreneurial endeavors that you focused on.
I think you're right that the sense of altruism, the sense of giving back to the community was something which seeded a lot of my entrepreneurial ideas. Because for me, like entrepreneurship, everyone has different definitions of entrepreneurship. Like in India, people don't even call it entrepreneurship. People just call it business, right? And everyone has different definitions. Some do it for the money, some do it for the fame, some do it for the purpose, but everyone has different definitions. For me, the idea was always that I never believed in this concept that, you start a social organization like an NGO, which is entirely dependent on grants and raising funds to serve community causes. You can only serve community causes by making a product or by earning money so that you can, empower those causes furthermore. So for me, my personal definition of entrepreneurship is that we have to use it as a tool, as a vehicle to solve problems and challenges which are larger than myself. So that's why the first company I started focused on financial literacy. The second company I started focused on sustainability and climate change, because these are problems which are way bigger than me as an individual. And if we think about it, a lot of the challenges which we see, poverty being one of them, is a construct in many ways of capitalism, right? Of how the society works. And I feel the problems of capitalism, which are such problems like poverty or climate change, can only be solved by capitalism. But the approach has to be different. The approach has to be that it has to be conscious capitalism. It has to be that what we're taught that maximize shareholder value. It can't be that anymore. It has to be maximization of stakeholder value. You care about the supply chain, you care about the employees, you care about the environment, and you still build flourishing businesses. That's why Breer's built on the philosophy of people, planet, and profit. That you have to balance all three for you to build a successful business of today. And that's what my firm belief, a core belief as a human being is first. And that obviously seeds into my belief as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I like the way you articulated that. I think for me, it's always been that business has a responsibility to give back to the community that supports it.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that you kind of came at it from the angle of a lot of the issues in the world are there because of capitalism. Because I've never really thought about it in that sense. I've always thought that if you're doing well and you're doing well because of the community that buys from you or supports you, then you have a responsibility to give back to that wider community, and you've got a responsibility to give back to the planet if there are things that you're doing that obviously not everything that we do is good for the planet. Right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how you articulated that. Naman, take me back to your early years, because I'm very curious on your family structure and what you took from that, because, you know, obviously I've done a little bit of listening and a little bit of reading, and I find it fascinating because it wasn't just you, your siblings, and your parents. Maybe talk a little bit about that and what that did to sort of, I guess, set up in you the values and the motivations that you have today.
Yeah, I think the fact that I was raised in a family setup of 18 people in one house, you know, it came with pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
And being the youngest of 18. Out of the entire household, right? So you got a lot of pampering because you were the youngest. So you got used to attention. But at the same time, there was always, you know, this element that people would not take you seriously because you're so young. So I grew up in that environment where for the longest, I had 3 uncles and my own father. All 4 of them had a joint family business where they were all equal directors, equal shareholders. And I saw what collaboration can be, but then what destruction of collaboration can also do.
Interesting.
Like growing up, right? So like, interestingly, all of my uncles and my dad, their name starts with S. Okay. And the surname is shared, right? Tekriwal.
Yeah.
For the longest, they even shared a business card. It was just S Tekriwal. Right? And they just shared a business card.
That's the best cost-saving initiative I've ever heard in my life.
Right?
It's like print one business card and print it like 1,000 times. And
exactly.
Split it up. Amazing.
So I've seen the heights of collaboration between my family, and I can see the value which it can bring.
Yep.
Right? But then I've also seen that when the financial crisis hit in 2008, when my grandfather passed away, you know, like obviously things get derailed because, again, Indian families and the structures you have are so complex that some assets are owned by some assets are owned by some, and things can get complicated as well. But what I really took away from a lot of these experiences is that relationships matter a lot. Like, you know, in such a large family, it is always it will always happen that there will be those cold conflicts between people. It's such a large family. But I was always the person who never had conflicts with anyone. I was always happy to take the shorter end of the stick just to, you know, retain on my relationships. And I think that has transcended into my approach of building businesses, building relationships, that I don't see relationships to be transactional at all. For me, a relationship is a relationship first, a friendship first, and then business comes much later. And I think many of these approaches, right, like just the frugality with which how my uncles and my dad built businesses, what I would see every day, right? The relationship, the collaboration, the partnership, like, and just so many silent episodes. For example, we were living in a house of like 4 floors. If my mom did not cook anything, well, I could go a floor up and I could be like, hey, aunt, what did you cook? Yeah. And having access to options, like these are very silent, you know, processes, which as a kid, maybe I'm not able to process, but I understand the value of these experiences much later on in life.
Yeah. You know, there's so much you've hit on there that I think is valuable. One thing you said earlier in my previous question, I think, was how you learn almost by just absorbing what was happening around you. And I think people underestimate the value of that, because when I look back at not only my upbringing and what I learned from my father and my mother, what I learned from 22 years in corporate was from watching people, you know, without being rude, fuck up.
Yeah.
Or people do things that really had an impact and succeeded.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you learn more from that than you do from any other course or you know, teaching that you go through in your life. And I try to tell younger people this, even within my organization, and I don't think a lot of people get it. And because you don't see the value of it till later.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you find yourself in a situation and you kind of look back and you think, I remember when that happened and we did this and this happened. So I should either do the same thing or I should do something different.
Yeah.
I think that's super interesting. I think you mentioned frugality. I think that's something that I always took from my father always used to say, now is the time to consolidate. Consolidate was the word.
For my father, the market was always bad. It has never become good. In the last 25 years of my being, the market has never been good.
Yeah.
Even though the market has been amazing at times as well, but it's never been good.
It's very interesting how you kind of frame things in your head and what that means for how you act.
Yeah.
I also like what you said about collaboration and like what you said about relationships. So let's go back. You did a couple of entrepreneurial endeavors before Breer, and I want to get to Breer, but let's talk about what you did before that in India. 13 years old, you set up a business. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the business became official when I was 14, but the idea came to me when I was 13.
Okay.
And I mean, we, discussed a bit earlier on that the idea was simply on that small insight about the fact that I was so aware, due to my upbringing of these basic concepts of money, saving, compounding, investing. But when I would look at my peers around, no one was talking about any of this. Everyone was like, I get my...
Well, most 14-year-olds don't.
True. True. But that was my reality, that I thought that everyone should be like this, but everyone was not like this. But in the idealistic world, people should be like this and schools should be teaching this, but they're not, right? So for me, the idea was very simple. Let's make people of my age and a bit older than me, like high schoolers, become aware about financial literacy. What is it to save? What is it to spend? How much should you save? How much should you spend? Things like that. And the simple example I had in mind was if people start saving when they're 13, 14, right? Even the best colleges in India, they're, it would be a shocker to the people in Hong Kong, but their education fees is what? 3,000 HKD for the whole year. Right?
I'm going to start sending my kids to India.
It's the best college in India, and the fees is what? 3,000 HKD for the whole year, right? So my example to them was if you start saving when you're 13, 14, by the time you are 18, you'd have the money to finance your own education, right? And it was a very honest attempt to just emailing or reaching out to high schools via connections and be like, can I come for 60, 90 minutes and do a seminar on why students should save money? And I printed 1,000 A4 pamphlets. I would hand it out to people. So the first year was literally just awareness building. And then I had no intention of actually converting it into a business, but the customers or the people who attended these seminars started coming back. The school started coming back, the parents started coming back and being like, our kid actually started reading stuff, actually started going online and, getting to learn about this stuff, but they don't know how to save money. And I realized that, yes, I had access to different tools, different resources, but not everyone has it. So let's create something simple. So what we did was we created a microfinance platform, which was people could save, students could save small amounts of money, $2, $5, $10. And very similar to what Mohammed Yunus did with Grameen Bank, pool up all the money and then invest it into mutual funds. So I managed to reach out to a friend's father who had all the necessary licenses to do this, got their company to impanel with us so that we could invest via their licenses. And we did that for 2 years.
Wow.
School to school, student to student, getting people to deposit money. And by the time I was 16, running the company for 2 years, we had around $20,000 saved by high school students with us.
Wow. So what was the average amount that someone would put into the account?
On a monthly basis, I would say it was 50 Hong Kong.
50 Hong Kong. Yeah. So these are 13, 14-year-old, 15, 16-year-old students.
Yeah.
And you were going school to school?
Yeah, school to school, mostly North India because Delhi. That's where I was based. So Delhi and then some parts of North India. And yeah, I mean, some obviously, the rich kids had more to do, the not so rich kids had less to do.
Right? The rich kids were not going to save. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it, they never felt the need to. Right?
Exactly.
Their
So
education was taken care of.
everything was taken care of. But yeah, at one point, it was like, there were students who were also doing like $10. There were students who were doing like 50 Hong Kong dollars. But the idea was that when we had, the number did not matter. It was the fact that a lot of the students were starting to build the discipline to save, which mattered a lot.
Yeah.
So the reason how, I think I'm jumping this, but like the reason why this company got acquired in a way was because of the fact that we had data of over 50,000 students who had inculcated the habit of saving money. So the company which bought us was because, like, they bought us because of the data.
So you had an exit
Yes.
as a teenager.
Well, sure, 16 years old. So like in between teenager and adult, yes.
It's fascinating to me that these kids, or maybe it's not. It's actually probably because you were so young that they listened to you.
Yeah.
Whereas if they'd brought a financial professional in from State Bank of India, they'd have fallen asleep
In the first 10
during the
minutes.
presentation. Right?
In the first 10
and no one
minutes.
would have listened to them. But the
100%.
fact that you were a peer,
Yeah.
they were probably quite intrigued
Yeah.
and took you more seriously.
100%. Because they were like, if this person can talk about, if this person knows how to do it,
Yeah.
then I maybe also be able to do it.
And you were showing them a success case that you had done yourself?
No, I was actually just sharing them stories. I would like exactly this one example of, if you start saving today, imagine 4 years later, you fund your college.
Yeah.
You like just show them the benefits of saving money, right? That's the whole idea. And I would give very simple examples. If you go out with your family, if you go out with your friends, you spend $50, $80, $100. How about you do that 4 times a month, $400? If you save the $400 and not spend it, this is what happens. So, yeah.
And through this all, you're learning how to sell, how to tell stories, how to persuade people to do things and present.
Yeah.
Because one of the questions that I did have for you is, you're a pretty confident 24-year-old. And I see young people today with far more confidence than young people had when I was young. But it's kind of clear to me that for you specifically where this came from, because you've been doing it since you were 13, 14 years old. And those lessons, I'm sure you're still using them today.
For sure.
You know, when you're selling, when you're pitching, when you've done an amazing job with Breer, and we'll get to that next. But those lessons must have been invaluable for you when you came to launch this product.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I was very fortunate that, like I had mentors and I had people who have, like, for some things you can, as we discussed, you can learn and observe. For some things, people have to like really drill it into your mind, right?
Yeah.
Like I till date, I have like so many rules and like regulations in my mind when I'm doing things. For example, when I'm doing public speaking, I will not eat food till a certain time because, again, the fact that, maybe I burp on stage.
Like, well, this is what I'm worried about.
Exactly.
This.
So just so many things, right? Like in this room itself, I was just telling it to Wilson as well, right? And this is my 3rd podcast in this room.
Yeah.
I was wearing white the first time, blue the second time. And then I watched both the podcast and white looked better. So I wore white
So
again.
I'll remember
and you're
that.
wearing blue.
I'll remember that for next time. No, it's interesting, the lessons you learn and the detail that you're talking about. So what brought you to Hong Kong, Naman? You're a teenager with a business. You've exited. You're in today the largest consumer market in the world potentially. It's at least in terms of number of people. Mm-hmm. What brought you to Hong Kong?
Well, that's the only not fancy story I can tell you, because it was a decision which I did not make for myself.
Okay.
So the idea was simple, that I did not want to study in an Indian institution, just because I or my father both actually did not see the value which an Indian institution can provide, because it's purely based on rote learning. And for, both of us have been believers of very experiential learning by doing sort of frameworks. So he was like, you need to go like outside of India and study. And I was very clear that I'm not going to take money from him. So it's not like, he had a financial pressure of sending me abroad to study. So the sad part of this story, and also the happy part, is that I have an elder sister who is 3 years older to me. So she had the same discussion with my father. And then she also made the choice of going abroad for education, right? And she went to the US. So she was in the US while I was making this decision. And my father, being my father, diversify risk, pragmatic individual, he's like, one child is in the West, one should be in the East.
I love that.
Because one child should be closer to home, one child should be, risk should be diversified. So he gave me two options, Hong Kong or Singapore. You can decide, because those are the two places where there are good universities. He even gave me Australia, but I was not too keen on Australia. So I applied to all the decent Hong Kong and Singapore universities, got into HKUST with a decent scholarship. It was the best business school in India at that time, in Asia at that time. I was like, let's do it. And many people have relatives. I had zero relatives, no connections in Hong Kong, just jumped headfirst.
Wow.
And came to Hong Kong.
And how long have you been here now?
6.5 years. So half more year to PR.
Okay. They should give you that for being a business owner. I always think that if you establish a business here, they should fast track you. Sure. Okay, so you get to Hong Kong and you get to HKUST, right?
Correct.
And you're doing your degree. And while you're doing that, you decide to start a business.
I would correct you. Like, I was not even doing a degree because I came with an undeclared major. So you're not doing any degree. You're just in university. And then you'll get the chance to declare your degree later on.
Okay.
Right? So, and this is first month into me being at HKUST. So it's not, I'm just settling in. But it was such a new environment for me. And for me, it was always like, event happening, let's go. Orientation happening, let's go. I was always like, just let's keep attending events. So it was not even, I hadn't even started university properly. And then the idea of Breer had already struck us.
So talk to me about that. Where did this idea come from?
So Breer is, like, in many ways, Breer is a business which is born out of serendipity. Everything which happened in the journey of Breer just happened because I was at the right place at the right time. So Hong Kong was really crucial for starting Breer, but especially HKUST was very important, right? So how we came up with, actually how I met my co-founder is the story of serendipity, because there was this social impact entrepreneurship competition which was taking place at HKUST. I attended the orientation. I'm there after classes. Everyone after classes is tired. They want to eat dinner, but there's me and there's another girl. And there are only two people in the room who are constantly like sparring with the, people who are presenting at the orientation. Why this? Why that? Why not this? Why not that? I was like, dude, this person is perfect. Like, why is she so passionate about this? And then we just connected after that. And that person is now my co-founder for the last 5 years, because I was like, this is the reason why I'm in university. I can meet people like her who are so passionate, who are so like-minded. So I met her. I was like, we should do something together. We should participate in this competition together. No idea whether we'll start the company or not. And then cut to a week later. So have you been to HKUST ever?
Yeah, I have. Okay, I live down the road.
Okay, so you know how far away it is, right? And this is the time when social unrest was going on in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So everything was shutting down early on campus. So me and my co-founder were taking a same course, an entrepreneurship course actually. And I think it had a midterm exam or something, and it ended like 8-9 p.m. And at that time, everything was shut on campus because, it was the protest. People didn't want that.
Bad time.
So we were like, let's take a taxi and go to TKO, like Chung Kano, which is the closest metropolis area near the university. And we go there. And I think in that area, there was only one bakery which was still open. And it was literally closing time. We were like, can we eat? We want to eat something. We took like garlic bread and focaccia and whatever. But the person was like winding up the shop. And then we literally saw him like take fresh loaves of bread and put it in a black rubbish bag. And just out of curiosity, I asked, like, what are you going to do with it? And they said that, oh, we're going to throw it. And that was so not natural to me, because in India, we're like, we save bread, we preserve bread in the fridge, we keep it for like 3-4 days. I've never seen bread being thrown unless it has mold on it. I've never seen bread being thrown, right? So it was just so unusual. And then that like repeated the pattern again and again, because there was a bakery on campus. They would do the same thing every night. So I was like, this is a big problem, like food waste or bread waste in general. And then I started noticing patterns, right? Like I'm sitting in the canteen, people take a plate full of food and then they have to run to a class 5 minutes later, 70% of the food is left. And I'm like, I was not raised like this. I was like, if I need to eat this much, I will take this much. So that was a philosophical misalignment in many ways. I was like, this is not working out. And then 1 week later, again, the midterm exams had ended and we were in LKF. Right in the middle of LKF, there was a famous club called Play. So we were at Play and I had just turned legal to be able to drink, but I was not drinking that day. But I was near the bar and I saw the bartender drinking a drink which looked like beer, but was, I don't know what. So I asked him, what are you drinking? And he said he's drinking a drink called Kvass, which is Kvass. It's a drink which is very popular in China, but originally it's from Egypt, was made for the kings in Egypt, then Russia, and then China. And Kvass is basically a low alcohol beverage, which is made by fermenting bread. And that was the eureka moment, the aha moment, that you saw so much bread waste over the last couple of weeks, and you can actually make a product out of bread.
So you can commercialize this problem in a way.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And like, basically, obviously, we debated on ideas. Do we start a food saving consultancy? Do we start an NGO? But I was like, we can make a product out of something. At that time, I did not know the word upcycling exists. Obviously, all of that came after. But I was like, let's make something out of the bread. And that obviously, led to 10 months of R&D. And then we launched the company eventually in 2020.
So what made you, as someone who didn't drink, decide to make beer from bread?
So for me, honestly, it's not beer. It's the proof of concept that, you can make something out of waste.
Okay.
Beer just happens to be a very commercial decision because it's the third largest consumed beverage on earth after water and coffee, right? So for me, it was like, how can we make a product which sells? And, it's not an imposition. Like, I'm not telling you to drink something which you don't know of. I'm giving you a sustainable choice or sustainable alternative of a behavior which you already do. So it's not me forcing a solution on you. It's me giving you an option, and then you decide what tastes better, what costs better, etc., etc. So for me, it could have been juice, seltzer, anything. But doing beer was purely a commercial decision.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I had no idea beer was the third largest consumer.
After water and coffee.
After water and coffee. And, based on previous guests we've had here, because we've had Carla from Chomp and then we've had Gabrielle from Feeding Hong Kong.
Who, by the way, is amazing. Gabrielle is amazing. We even spoke to her. I was like, is there any way we're stepping on your toes if we're doing this? And she's like, Naman, you don't even know how much Hong Kong wastes.
Yeah, and that's the thing I was going to say. It's like you're all solving the same problem, and the problem is so big that I'm kind of surprised more people aren't doing something with all of this waste and managing to commercialize it.
I think, someone asked this to me in another conversation, that if you're proud of something in Breer, what are you proud of? And I think I would say that since Breer started, we've seen an crazy increase in the number of companies which have, adopted this model of upcycling. And not only companies, but even corporates.
Okay.
Like, I think, I wouldn't say we're pioneers, but I think we were definitely movement starters in a way that, as soon as we started doing it, we obviously got instant press because of the novel idea.
Yeah.
And then so many people are like, oh, we can use cacao husk to do something. We can use our water to do something. We can do regenerative agriculture. Like, I think we started a trend in Hong Kong, which obviously now is very big. And now people want to do all kinds of things with like their upcycled waste.
I was pretty amazed that and we've talked about this on this podcast before, 3,600 tons of food waste daily, but 45% of it is bread.
Yeah. And then another 40% of it is rice. And then everything else is rest, basically. Rice and bread are the biggest constituents of this problem.
And you're selling into a market in Hong Kong that's 1.2 billion Hong Kong dollars.
In terms of, beer consumption in US dollars. Yeah. So people can drink here. So you're in the right business.
Yeah, well, you did your research, right? And for context, that's 150 million US dollars or about 115 million pounds.
Yeah.
Naman, I'm curious. So your co-founder, how important was it for you to have someone to do this with? And what is that relationship sort of, how has it evolved? Because a co-founder relationship can be complicated.
For sure. I think for me, I'm a firm believer of the fact anything which I've started from my first company till Breer and to a couple of other things which I'm seeding now, like having co-founders is really important because I know that I'm not smart, right? I'm not the smartest person in the room if I think I'm in the wrong room, right? I'm just not smart. And there will always be people who are smarter than me, better than me, and more hardworking than me. So rather than making them competitors, make them collaborators, right? Make them co-founders. So I think having a co-founder is really important. And me and my co-founder both, like we have this firm belief, like we were thinking that we should put this somewhere like in the office or something like that, where team, the word, is an acronym which stands for together, everyone achieves more.
Oh, nice.
So that's our firm belief, right? That it has to be a partnership. Like, with Anushka, it was so obvious because she can speak Cantonese, which was, again, a very, very big saving grace because we had to talk to like truck drivers. We had to speak to like logistic people. And for me, it was only like, why? Like, that's the only Cantonese I know, right? So it was really helpful, obviously, with having Anushka on board. But I think the co-founder dynamic is really important. And I say this to everyone who asks me that their biggest problem is finding a co-founder. How do I find one? What do I look for? Personally, the only thing I believe that you should look for when you're looking for a co-founder is work ethic. That's it. Because knowledge, skills, everything can be acquired. The person, how good the person is, and does your work ethic align with the person matters the most. Like, I've had, like business relations with people who would be like, who want to work hard, but they only want to work hard 8 hours. They want to go and party. They want to do things. They want to take vacations. Good for them. I'm sure they can still build successful businesses, but will we be good co-founders? I don't think so. For me, it was like, you have to work till 3 a.m. That's a good co-founder for me because it has to be selfish. You have to be selfish in selecting your co-founder. And that's how I selected mine.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I really struggle with the narrative that you can work 20 hours a week and work from the beach and you can, live this amazing life and you don't, and I'm like, really?
I can't.
I kind of don't understand that approach to business because I feel like one, you've got to be leaving so much on the table.
Yeah.
Right. And two, I think it says something about the ambition you have for the business. I guess if you just want to do it for yourself and that's all you're doing it for, then maybe it's different.
Yeah.
But I really struggle with that. How's the relationship evolved though, Naman, over the time? Has it look very different today than it did at the beginning?
Well, for sure. Yeah. Because, like different circumstances in life, different approaches and challenges in life. When you're a student, obviously, things are a lot more less serious. But when you start growing up and, you have responsibilities like, conversations around marriage and moving and future life plans. So obviously, like the relationship has to evolve. The needs of the co-founder dynamic have to evolve with time as well. But change is the only constant. So you have to adapt according to the needs of both the individuals. And trust me, we have debates, we have fights every day. But for us, we are very simple that data is king. Like you bring me a statistic that India will work for us and this state will work for us, let's go. But if I bring you a statistic that this will not work, then you have to be on, with me on this.
Yeah.
And I think it's the partnership, right? She is the sane one. I am the crazy one. I will always be like, let's do 5 things together: Vietnam, Singapore, India, Thailand. Let's do 6 different types of products. And she's like, calm down.
Maybe I need a co-founder.
You already have one. She's sitting here.
Well, yeah, for Banyan, absolutely. We did this together. With Dragonfly and in my business, we actually went through a co-founder divorce after COVID, which was difficult at the time, but I think ended up being best for everyone. And I think sometimes you just have to go through that. But honestly, without my co-founder at the beginning, I don't think we would have ever established what we established.
Yeah, so, I absolutely agree with you.
So it's interesting. It's interesting to me. Naman, you talk about being a 0 to 1 kind of entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that? And what did that look like for Breer going from 0 to 1?
So I think Breer's 0 to 1 journey was a very, very fun journey, right? Because I've always thought of myself as someone who is very non-technical. I think I'm very surface level and, very high level as an individual. But Breer's journey was the first time where I was like, let's get deep in the waters. And the first step was, we have 2,000 Hong Kong dollars. Let's order a home brewing kit from Amazon. And we ordered a home brewing kit. This was in the middle of COVID. So, everything shut. And I was like, let's learn brewing on YouTube. And literally started how to make beer. Started learning the process. Started literally taking grain, taking water, putting things in the home brewer. And this was while I'm in Hall 9 at HKUST. And I've actually blown up the roof of the common room while doing this. And the warden got involved.
That's what woke us up.
The warden got involved. The dean got involved. So it was such a fun journey because I was learning everything which was so new to me, right?
Yeah.
Learning how to make beer, learning about a new market, learning about sales, speaking to people. So many beliefs are shattered because, you study marketing and you're like, oh, you're amazing at marketing. Only for you to realize when you go out in the marketing, in the world, it's so
a little bit different, isn't it?
So the simplest example, right? We thought, oh, how tough it can be, right? Let's do a couple of variations and we'll figure out the recipe. It took us 22. It took us 22 iterations
with
of
the home
product.
brewing kit? Or?
No, so the first 5, 6
you
with
blew
the
that up, right?
Eventually.
Yeah.
But first 5, 6 with the home brewing kit, and then we moved to a commercial brewery which had a very small 20-liter setup for us to be able to experiment stuff. Home brewing was 2-3 liters. That was 20 liters. But even in the 20-liter ones, right, it was some were very salty, some were very sweet, some were not even drinkable. Because it was trial and error. We did not know what the bread was doing to the recipe. It was all literally shooting arrows in the dark. Until we came to a product which was edible. It was just edible, I would say. And I was like, let's go and test it with people. There's no point waiting and perfecting the product. Let's get feedback from people. And then I've actually had experience of people spitting the beer in front of me. We had a very random label done because we thought it's really cool and abstract, only for us to understand that people didn't even understand what was happening on the label. So this 0 to 1 journey of constantly every day being involved. We started selling at a store called Edgar in Wan Chai, one of the primary sustainability stores at that time. And we were the happiest people in the world. One store is selling our beer, right? I think that happiness can't be replaced by a big corporate order today, right? Because now you're in that 1 to 5 journey. Now you have to care about getting that corporate order because you have to turn a profit, because you have to, grow your revenue. So now the considerations are very different. So I think Breer's 0 to 1 journey was very fun. And I feel I am a person who loves the 0 to 1 journeys more because purely the adrenaline rush is something else. Every day is a new success. Every day is a new loss. But your adrenaline is so pumped all the time that you just want to live that journey as long as you want.
So I'm curious, you've got a lot of different variations with Breer.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you do that? Why did you come up with flavored beers and a lager and a pale ale? And what was the reason behind that? Does that actually help you scale the revenue, or was there something more to it than that?
So it's a mix of market insight and obviously market research, market insight in a way that we understood the problems around logistics.
Yeah.
You know, like that obviously there are MOQs related to deliveries. And then Hong Kong is so small that no one wants to order like 72 of the same because they're like, where will we store this? But they are open to order 24, 24, 24 because then they're like, oh, we have less of each. So we have less pressure of selling one product. So they want to diversify their risk as much as possible in the small limited spaces they have. So one was, why should we grow the product line? But second was also that in Breer's early days, it was like we were approaching a lot of bakeries to give us bread, and we would just get insights, right? That, hey, we don't have plain white bread, but we have dark rye, we have sourdough, we have tomato. We've literally, in the initial days, we've done a tomato beer, we've done a tequila flavored beer. So we have done that in the past, actually, for a Mexican restaurant. We've done a milk-based beer as well. Again, just because for us, it was like someone is giving us bread, let's take it and let's do something out of it. So that, I think, snowballed into us solidifying that, oh, like bolo pao could be interesting because it's such a good marketing angle. You know, when we went to a bakery and they said, we have a lot of pineapple bun wastage, actually, we started collecting that and we were like, this could be amazing from a marketing perspective. So, but we wouldn't have even understood that if we would have never approached that bakery. So a lot of it was also market research, that we were just going to collect general bread and then we were getting to hear from people, what do they have in waste?
You know what I like about that is that one of my businesses, as you know, is distributing products.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've learned over the years in my corporate career, but also in my entrepreneurial journey so far, is that having a portfolio gives you a lot of advantages. And you've almost created your own portfolio, albeit with one brand, by having different variations of the same product, which I think is really interesting and a lesson that people can take away from this discussion. One of the things the sales team is constantly telling me here in Hong Kong is that we need to expand our portfolio if we're going to be successful. People don't want to just buy one thing from us. They want to buy more.
And I think it's market insight in general, right? Like if you look at, like, I think it's Asian behavior also. It's a very different behavior in the West. But if you look at some of, the companies in India or the companies, which I interact with, their model has always been like, let's do a pack of six, one of each. Because that sells, because that's a perfect gift. Like, let me take 6 small samplers. That's why if you look at even perfume brands, I know you're there with Dragonfly and everything, like them doing the small 5 ml bottles, it's probably not not sustainable from a cost perspective, but then it is so sustainable from a selling and distribution and moving the stock perspective, right? So I think it's businesses understanding that definitely the Asian, because they think that they're giving more, even though you're still giving 20 ml, but you think they're giving more because it's 4 quantity rather than 1 piece, right? So it's a lot of psychology behind these packaging decisions and a lot of these sales decisions. But I do want to learn from you, because you've done so much product cataloging and like there is so much dead stock because of this. How do you balance that nerve, right?
I mean, I think dead stock is an issue for all of us. I think the world's changed a lot, and online has, with the consumer products that we carry, online has really changed the game for us, because you have things like Double 11, Black Friday, every single e-commerce marketplace has their big day.
Yep.
With the products that we carry, one way we move dead stock is through e-commerce promotions on those big days.
Yeah.
And offering the customer something very special on that day to get that product. We do other things. We do pop-ups in Taiwan. We actually have outlet stores. We haven't yet hit that point with the spirits business, to be honest. But it's a very young business for us. So I'm sure it'll come. One thing that really helps sometimes is if we can find international markets to move product to.
Yeah.
Because something that may not be in demand in Hong Kong may be in demand somewhere else.
For sure.
And we've managed to move some slow-moving spirits in inventory out of Hong Kong to third countries where people actually do demand it.
Yeah.
But it's one of the biggest challenges in the business, quite frankly. And the one thing I would say to anyone who's running a business is it varies so much market to market.
Yep.
So we have Taiwan, we have Vietnam. In Taiwan, we actually have 2 outlet stores. And the whole outlet mall concept is quite established in Taiwan. It doesn't exist in Vietnam.
Yeah.
There is no outlet mall. I mean, I've driven down a street and seen Nike factory outlet on a street level shop front, but there's no outlet store there. So what works in one place doesn't work in another. And I think what works in one category doesn't work in another either.
Yeah.
Hong Kong never had an outlet mall until Citygate opened.
Yeah, for sure.
And Citygate wasn't an outlet mall, but it wasn't successful until they turned it into an outlet mall. It was just a mall, and no one would go to it because it was so far away.
Science Park.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's some of these little tweaks. Citygate is now hugely successful,
For sure.
and all because of that one tweak. Naman, tell me, what lessons have you learned that you think others would benefit from on this sort of 0 to 1 journey? And I'm thinking about things like idea to execution, proof of concept. What are the lessons that you think other entrepreneurs could benefit from that maybe took you a couple of years to learn and were probably quite painful at the time?
So I think for any aspiring entrepreneur, right, I have this framework, which in podcasts, we only talk about things which have, become successful. But obviously, we've all had those 3 months of working hardly on an idea and it did not working, right? So we'll count it as a failure as well. But this framework, which I now follow, even when I'm wearing an investor hat, even when I'm wearing any other, like mentor hat, is this framework of IMT. And IMT basically stands for idea, market, and T is team and timing. If you have all these 4 checked out, then you're ready for the 0 to 1. Idea is simple, right? What's your idea? What do you want to do? And obviously, is the idea novel enough to some extent? No one is going to do anything new in this world again, but how can you do it better? That's the idea. Market is a very difficult thing to figure out, right? Because how big is the market and how receptive is the market are 2 very different things. You can have an absolutely big market, but how receptive it is something you need to test the nerve on. And then it's team, that am I the best person to do this? Do I have someone along with me who can be an amazing person to do this as well, right? Or do I need to hire, build, whatever? But do I have the right team in place to be able to execute that idea? And the last is timing, which every entrepreneur, every billionaire was born out of luck, right? It is timing. It is, you have to be at the right time, at the right place, right? So it is timing. I think I said this on another podcast, right? Bezos doing Amazon in the 70s would not have worked.
Yeah.
He doing it at the time of the internet boom, yes, it works, right? So it's idea, market, team, and timing, which is really important. And the second is my favorite is, as Nike says, just do it, right? Because our mind is the biggest graveyard of ideas. We think of ideas every day, but we kill them down and we shoot them down without even investigating or researching further. And most of this self-doubt that how will I do it? Where will I get the money from? Where will I get the distribution from? It's all in your mind. No one had these answers when they started, but people figured it out along the way. So people have to figure it out along the way. No one will have these answers on day one. You can do as much goal setting as you want. You can do as much as you want, right? It will not help. You will change those goals in the first month. I think a third and very important piece is that don't be afraid of failure, because that's, I personally feel that especially my generation, maybe your generation does it a bit better, but my generation has this fake sense of pride. Whereas I don't know where is that pride coming from, right? oh, if I fail, what will the other person think? If I fail, what will my friends think? How do I create my own personal brand if people won't like, comment, subscribe, right? It's so much is attached to your privilege and so much is attached to your priciness, whereas you should have none. What have you achieved in life to have it, right? So that failure of image and failure of business, that I start a business and if it doesn't work, what happens, right? For me, FAIL is an acronym, which stands for first attempt in learning. You started something, and if it did not work, you still learned so much than you would have, by reading a book or going to university or going to school. A failed business will still teach you so much more. So I think it's these three things, right? It's how to evaluate what to start, starting it, and then not caring about the failing aspect of it.
I completely concur with just jumping in the deep end, but checking a few boxes before you do. Like looking at the market, looking at the timing.
But don't do step number 2. Don't start first and then do the IMT, right?
Yeah,
first do IMT and then just do it. Yeah.
And the thing is, though, shit can change around you.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've told this story before, but we started the construction on this space 2 months before the protests in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And then we went into the protests and we went into COVID. And when we came out of COVID, the market was completely different to when we went in.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a lot of shit that's completely outside of your control sometimes. And with the best intentions and the best research and the best ideas, timing is a huge, huge thing.
Yeah. I think a lot of the reasons as to why Breer succeeded was because it was at the time when Hong Kong saw an ESG boom. And it's kind of plateaued now with AI taking over a lot of those conversations and the CFOs allocating their budget to AI and a workforce optimization rather than ESG. But when we started, it was like Hong Kong Exchange coming up with that guideline that all listed companies must do an ESG report.
Yeah.
It was the right time to start. And that's why there was so much government funding available. There was so much government impetus available.
Yep.
I don't know if you're aware, right? But there is this competition called the HKUST Sino $1 million competition.
Okay.
Right? You get 1 million HKD as a winning team. And usually how these are structured is that you have to hit certain milestones. You will win from those milestones and then you keep getting money. This is a one-shot bank transfer. $1 million in your bank account, right? And before us and after us, all the companies which have won this are usually tech companies like AI or building a fintech app. We were the only company which was almost like making a CPG product and, in the sustainability space, but we did it in the right year.
So what's CPG for people who don't know?
Consumer goods, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were a consumer good product, sustainability.
So you guys
product.
won.
Yeah.
And how much did that change the trajectory of Breer?
Oh, I mean, we were thinking, let's do 200 liters, and it went from being like, let's do 10,000 liters.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
because we had the access to capital, we had and I mean, a lot of these things allowed us to never raise money. Anushka and I own 100% of the company, bootstrapped. And again, goes back to the very starting point of this conversation, frugality. We've run this business very frugally, and we've never believed, maybe I can even discuss this with you, right? But I don't think beverage sponsorships work because I think it's a waste of money. The people drink your product at a party, they don't remember you. So that's why I don't like doing beverage sponsorships, right? And that's how I've saved a lot of money in the company. I do it for Rethink because it's a very captive audience which cares, but I don't do it for a random party because people will never remember my product. They're already drunk, right? So for me, it is a lot of these lessons with which I've built business, and I've never been like, let's burn to earn. Since year one, Breer has been profitable. And since the last 5 years, we've run the company profitably.
Amazing. That's an amazing thing to be able to say. So you mentioned sustainability when you, just very briefly, when you were talking about timing, and you probably got that wave a little bit. Talk to me about the sustainability in this can and in this product. Because it's more than just the product, right? It's more than just the beer.
Correct. So this beer obviously is a sustainable option, but it doesn't come at a green premium, right? It is affordable in a way that if you go to a supermarket, it'll be competitively priced to any other beer on the shelf. So it's not expecting you to pay a higher price just to do a good deed for the planet. That's number one. In terms of the impact it creates, every can features a QR code. And the QR code tells you the exact impact you make as an individual by drinking this can of beer.
So where's that QR? Oh, yeah, got it. Okay.
So it will tell you saved 20 grams of bread. You saved 90 kgs of carbon emissions. You saved this much amount of water. You supported this UN Sustainable Development Goal. So it tells you that when you drank this beer, you actually made an impact. If you go to a bar and our beer is being poured on draft, our coaster has the same QR code. You will get to know the impact you made. And every beer is different. And we go beyond the product, right? So we didn't want to be a sustainable product. We wanted to be a sustainable enterprise, a sustainable company. So we get the bread for free, right? Now I have a cost advantage compared to my other peers who pay for the grain, who pay for the barley. I could have easily been like, let's do the same thing, and I would have made more money as a company. But we passed that profits back to the value chain, again to the concept of maximization of stakeholder value. Thus, the cans we used are thin recycled aluminum, which makes it more easy to recycle. Rather than the cheap grade aluminum, which is hard to recycle.
Most companies will use the...
as cheap as you could go. Like as cheap as, like you could see in COVID, they were even thinning it. Like if you would drop the can like this, it would have a dent. Because it's so cheap, the aluminum, right? The labels we use are soy-based printed labels because then it can be easily recycled compared to plastic-based ink. So a lot of the decisions we take in this company is the fact that we don't want to be a sustainable product. Everyone in the value chain should be getting something more because we are doing the right thing.
So I think that's amazing. And to go to that level of detail, you don't often see it because it's easy to cut certain corners. And even though the savings per can may be small, with the volumes that you're doing and hope to do,
it's still small.
But as it grows, it can add up to a lot, right? On the bottom line.
For sure.
And 99.9% of your consumers don't know. But you're still doing it. And I think that speaks volume. So tell me about the importance and the role of purpose for you in running a business. Because it comes through very strongly in everything you're saying.
I think purpose is everything. Because if you're doing the business for only profit, the motivation will die out very soon. Trust me. It is the purpose which keeps you committed to the process of building the company and not the profit. Money is good, right? But the purpose and the impact which we see, which this product creates. Like when I see our impact report and I see that, we've saved 100 tons of bread, which would have otherwise straight ended up in a landfill. That's, that gives me a feeling that, hey, the reason why I wanted to be an entrepreneur is being solved. As I said, it is a company purpose, and then the company purpose has to be linked to your individual purpose as well. My individual purpose was using entrepreneurship as a tool to solve problems, solve bigger problems. And then when I see my company solving those bigger problems, that's where these worlds align. So it has to be driven by purpose, right? Because otherwise the excitement will phase out. Like if you one bad year of the company, you'll be like, let's go, right? But the purpose is what keeps us going as a company. The purpose is what keeps you pivoting as a company. The purpose is what compulsifies you that you have to build it for the right reasons. You have to build it for the right causes. And that's why now in this 5 to 10 journey of Breer, right? When we're even I'll give you a very simple example. I've had so many pitches to me. You don't even know, so many pitches where people have said, let's move this to Vietnam. No one will notice. I'm like, then I'm
solving the production. Yeah.
And then I'm like, then I'm solving Vietnam's problem. Then I'm not solving Hong Kong's problem, right? So
you're shipping it then.
And I'm shipping it and creating carbon emissions. Secondly, so many people have given me this wonderful suggestion. Just stop using bread. Who will know? Because the taste is actually not a bread, right? Can you really tell that it has bread? They're like, just stop using bread and you'll make so much more money. And I'm like, sure, but I'm not doing it exactly only. If I was a capitalistic business maximizing shareholder value, I would have done it. But this is a consciously capitalistic business maximizing stakeholder value, and that's why I will never do it.
I love the intentionality, and it's rare to see it in someone who started a business as young as you did. But then I also think that your generation, my kids' generation as well, see things very differently because the world's problems are more obvious to the masses who actually take the time to look.
Yeah.
You know, and you grew up in India, which also has I think another huge influence on you.
I think, you know, like you're in the consumer goods business as well, right? Like, I think it's increasingly becoming so important that when people of my generation, when they're walking into a store, they're walking in to buy a mission, not a product. If you can tell them a story which they can align with, and they can be like, this will make me feel a bit good or a bit better, they will do it. Plus the sharing aspect of it, that if they can then post it on Instagram and share it with people that I did good, it's even better.
It's interesting from a consumer aspect. I also find it very interesting from a recruitment aspect, actually, that people want to work for companies that have a mission and a purpose.
Yeah.
And I think the two are obviously interlinked because we're talking about the same demographic, right?
Yeah,
And how important these things are to them. So what's next for Breer?
What's next is actually, we're working on something together.
Vietnam?
Well, Vietnam soon, actually, in a couple of months, but through a collaboration.
Okay.
With
so solving Vietnam's problems, but for Vietnam,
correct.
Not for Hong Kong.
Correct.
Right.
Solving Vietnam's problem for Vietnam. So that is coming soon. And it is with one of the world's most sustainable breweries. And I knew the person before he started the company, the founder Stanley Booth. So we're collaborating with his brewery, Seven Bridges, to do something really, really meaningful. But to be really honest, right, that it's been 5 years and I think we're entering an era, which we've had discussions offline about, is alcohol consumption is slightly taking a hit. There is a growing demand for non-alcoholic products. There is a growing demand for health and wellness related products, right? I don't know which lobby is this. Is this the government lobby? Is this the, healthy products lobby? But it is happening, right? So Breer obviously was always started as a company. As I said, right, I'm not stuck to the idea of beer. I'm stuck to the idea of upcycling. So you're going to be seeing in the next 6 months that Breer is going to be launching many products which are nothing to do with beer.
Okay.
And it's going to be products which just carry the same mission of being upcycling. It could be juices, it could be seltzers, it could be kombucha, it could be anything. Wherever a customer is who wants a sustainable product, I want to be there. So the idea is never beer. The idea is how can I get people access to more sustainable alternatives? And then obviously that's product development and market development. We just launched in Singapore and we're doing things in India and Vietnam soon.
Through collaborations?
Through collaborations.
Through collaborations, yeah. The fact that you're keeping that close to the market and sort of watching things and not stuck on this one product, I think is also really interesting.
Change is the only constant.
Yeah, change is the only constant, absolutely. You've worked with some major names in Hong Kong. Just to name a few, Maxim's, 7-Eleven, I'm sure you can name many more. How have you approached these huge companies and what is it that you think you've learned or that you can share with others about approaching these big corporates when you're small and you're young and you've actually succeeded in getting them to buy in to what you are pitching?
Yeah. So when you're this young, I'm going to borrow this from a friend, Andrew Young. So he has this philosophy of the third door approach. So the first door is the main gate, right? You might not have access to it because you're not big enough. The second is a VIP entrance, a VIP gate that I know the owner. The third door is somewhere back in the alley or somewhere through, the basement or something like that. It's how do you take the third door? Because a lot of these accounts are so difficult to crack because they're too big to care. They just don't care. So you have to deliver value to them, which you know you can. But before value, it is how do you grab their attention? And how do you make room for yourself in that space? So with Maxims, right? How did we get Maxims? Like we approached them with every possible cold method that existed in the world, right? Letter, email, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, everything. No reply at any of these platforms. Like we did stories for them, like Maxims, let's collaborate, no reply at all. And then one day we were like so tired and we were like, it's not going to work out. We have to do something else. We had 3 cases of beer, so 72 cans. It was a Thursday. I went to Lychee Cork in front of their office at 12 p.m. and started handing out beers to their employees. Legit, during lunchtime. Handing out beers to their employees, 70, 80 employees, however much cans I had, I finished it in like 1 hour or something, people going in and out of the office. And it reached the supply chain team. And then they reached out to us that we saw your products, we'd love to collaborate.
That's an amazing story. So you got them drunk and then you persuaded them.
Well, I don't think so. They had it at that time, but it was like I had no other way to get the product in front of them other than the fact that I literally stand in front of their office and distribute cans. And
that's fascinating.
That is how you have to access the third door. Yeah. You have to give them value by being in front of them in a way they would never imagine. That's how Shake Shack happened. That's how 7-Eleven happened. Like literally there have been cases like where we started, like, we were on a consignment order with a couple of these retail shops and they're like, we'll test to convert it into a wholesale model once we sell a lot more. I told my friends, everyone gets $30, go and buy the product. And then my friends bought the whole stock. My friends went and bought the whole stock. And they're like, dude, your product is crazy. Your product is in crazy demand. Give us more.
It's a lovely idea, actually, to get people to go and buy it for you while it's on consignment and boost the sales. I love that.
Don't copy.
No, we've done that in the corporate world before. We've done that in the corporate world before, and it does work. It's a little bit expensive way to do business, but if it works, then it pays back very quickly, and you get that ROI. Naman, talk to me about recognition. You're the youngest Forbes 30 under 30 awardee in APAC. What does that mean to you, and what did it mean for the business to get that recognition? And I think your co-founder got the same recognition as well.
Yeah, she's just a year older to me. So
a year older than you. So you're the youngest, but she was also recognized at the same time, and rightly so as co-founder. What did it mean to you, and what did it mean for the business?
So personally, I think it meant a lot because it seems like, like a lot of your efforts were validated. This title is obviously namesake, but your efforts were validated and it's like an external validation of your efforts. So I think personally it matters a lot, but I would say titles is one thing, right? You can get as many titles as you want, but if you don't feel proud about those titles will never serve any meaning, right? Because externally, I honestly think that happiness lasted me 3 minutes in total. It happened at 7:30 a.m. in the morning when they announced the list. It lasted for like 3 minutes. I called my mom, I called my dad, I called my sister, done. Back to work, right? But does it open a bit more doors for you as a business? Yes. Right? Because when you have it on your LinkedIn title and you message people take you a tad bit seriously.
Yeah.
Right? Because of the fact that, Forbes recognized him. So he's not just a random kid on the block. You know, like he has done something. So it does help from that perspective. But to address the larger question of why recognition is important, I think more than recognition, what is important today is personal brand. Because if you and your business are not speaking the same language, like the modern day consumer is not going to buy from you. Like personal brands have become so important because people attach, like when I go to events, people are like, oh, the beer girl, because they've met my co-founder. And it happens the same thing with my co-founder, the tall guy, right? Because people associate brands with people now.
Yeah.
That's the reason why brand ambassadors started in the first place. But obviously it became so unauthentic that spokesperson were promoting Pepsi and Coca-Cola, right? So it became very unauthentic.
Interesting. Because, you know, the generation that I grew up in was a generation that didn't want awareness for themselves. And today I think it's almost critical that people know who's behind the company, who's behind the brand. And I also have an interesting viewpoint on recognition that when you're the founder, it's human nature to want a little bit of reinforcement, a little bit of, you did a good job.
Yeah.
But you don't get it
Yeah.
when you're the founder.
For sure.
Right? And your job is actually to give it to people. So when you do get it, it hits home, I think, a little bit differently. And I think it really helps to just keep that fire lit a little bit. But I also think, to your point, it gives you credibility, like when they see it on a LinkedIn profile or you know, they...
But, you know, I'll tell you that there is a dangerous side to it, which maybe you can impart as, because I've learned it the hard way, but maybe you can impart it to, you know, your kids. I do it with a lot of young entrepreneurs who are like same age as me, that when you're this young, you know, as you started in this introduction that you're 52, I'm 24 and I'm building businesses, right? Your age becomes a sort of an attraction factor that this person is doing so many things at a young age. And when so many people start telling you that you're so young, but you're so successful, right? It gets to your head. It gets to your head that, dude, I'm so successful. I'm the next Elon Musk. And then you start stepping over people. Then you start thinking too highly of yourself.
So who keeps you grounded?
Honestly, the people who have built around me, like if I will go home and, you know, once this podcast will be out, my girlfriend will see it and be like, you stuttered here. You did this here. You did that here. You opened the can. Like I have noticed this myself. I opened the can and the brand was not showing. My girlfriend will point this out. Right? So I literally have people who will never want to appreciate me and always keep me grounded. So, but I've learned it the hard way, because it has happened with me in high school where, you know, I was like achievement after achievement, started a company, sold a company, got in the newspapers, everything. So people will hype you up and then make you fall. So it is, though that fall can hurt really bad. I was fortunate that I had it very early on in life, but it is the nature of people that people can hype you up, but you need to have a support system which will always keep you grounded.
You're grounded. Yeah, makes total sense. Last couple of questions. I'll roll them into one. You have spent a lot of your time also helping to build the entrepreneur community in Hong Kong. I'm curious, where does that passion come from? Because I see two types of entrepreneurs. I see the entrepreneurs who really want to engage and really want to be part of that community. And I see the entrepreneurs who want to just build their thing and be left alone.
Yeah.
And they'll take the recognition and they'll take that, but they actually don't want to be part of the wider entrepreneur ecosystem.
Yeah.
So where does that come from? And I guess my last question would be, who inspires you and where do you get your mentorship from?
So I'll answer the second question first, right?
Okay.
Who inspires me? Hands down, my father.
Okay.
He is my biggest source of inspiration, right? Because the quote, the fail quote, which I said, which is first attempt in learning, if I wanted to find like a poster boy for that, it has to be my father. The amount of times that man has failed, but still managed to rise. Like he's starting a new business now at the age of like 54, right? So very similar, that it is the ability to not take yourself seriously and still keep hustling hard. So that's my very grounded source of inspiration, like values, building businesses, dealing with people, managing people. Like even if he had a fight with one of his brothers, my uncle, and I would be like, I would have the intention to say something bad about my uncle, he would always stop me. Because business is business, family is family. So there are so many things, like I can keep going on and on about the man, right? Yeah. But in terms of my efforts for ecosystem development in Hong Kong and across the world, I think the reason I do it is because, as you rightly pointed out, that as entrepreneurs, it's a very lonely and isolating journey. And you need people who are just not there to celebrate your successes, but your failures. And who you need people who can be like, hey, it's okay, chin up, like, how can I help? You need a safe space. And how I realized that is, I started very young, so I had the access. I did not know anything. So I, again, got the access to mentors. I got the access of people, around me. But then when I was growing up, I was like, okay, I am fortunate enough to have that access of people, but not a lot of people get that access. Some are introverts, some don't get that access. So in COVID, I actually, if you were to ask me one thing which I'm most proud of in life, is something which I did in COVID, which was for 2 years, I ran this competition called the Young Tycoons Business Challenge, which was, we started a competition because I was like, I became a high school student. I became a high school entrepreneur, but other high school students don't have that opportunity. Me and my best friends on a call decided, let's start something. And there was just an idea that let's get smart high school students pitch business ideas. We get them right mentors. We get them right workshops. First year, we got 20,000 applications.
Wow.
For this competition. Second year, we got 35,000. And the best part of all of this was that these applications were not coming from like the US, UK, London, India. They were coming from like Uganda, Nigeria, Sudan, Mongolia. I was like, do these places even have access to proper education? That we have students applying for entrepreneurial education. And that's when it hit me that the need of a community is so strong. All these students wanted was access to some smart people who they can discuss their ideas with and learn about entrepreneurship. That's why what we're doing with what you're building in Hong Kong, which is the community which we've started, is we're creating, like, we call it the baby shower for entrepreneurship. That people have started new businesses. They can come and talk. We don't want pitch. We don't want you to selling to us. Just talk about your business for 5 minutes. Where are you stuck? Where are you struggling? Do you have a problem? Do you want to hire people? Do you want to invest? Do you want to raise? And then people in the room are again entrepreneurs, and they will give you suggestions, feedback, questions, criticism. So a safe space for 30, 40 entrepreneurs to come and discuss entrepreneurship. We don't want BD people hanging around. We don't want sales people hanging around. We want people who are genuinely there to help other people.
Fascinating. Fascinating. I'm going to throw it open if anyone does have a question.
Thanks, Naman. That was so interesting. I've got a couple of questions, actually. How big is your team? And do you use, or are you going to be using more AI? And if so, how do you balance that with your passion for sustainability?
So the team is not big at all, because it is obviously linked to the idea of frugality. We've not spent on the team, but I think it's getting to a point where we will have to spend on the team. So we have obviously me and my co-founder, and then we have 2 other employees, one for marketing and one for admin in general. But we have a lot of partners. Like when we were in university, we were building this company in a way that by the time we have to graduate and we will have to take a call whether we want cushiony iBank jobs or do we want to, hustle hard in the business, we will need to have the right partners. And that's why our brewery partners, our, logistics partners, all of them are so synchronized in the way they work that if I want to make 10,000 liters of beer today or right now, I can make it on WhatsApp. I don't even need to be involved. Like bread will be collected, sent to the brewery. Our brewing consultant will make the recipe, give it to the brewery. The beer will be made. Our logistics person will collect it. It'll go to the warehouse. Everything can be done without being involved. And that should be the goal of business, that you can automate it, that it can really run without you. So that you as a founder can think of really high level stuff. Like how can I work with Rasheed on making a canned cocktail? That is what I should be spending my time on rather than figuring out why did this delivery did not reach on time, right? That's my belief in building a business. In terms of AI, I think it really helps in automating a lot of admin processes. Like in a consumer goods business, right? There's so many purchase orders, inventory logging, inventory tracking. So I think we've really applied AI in the back end of this business. Like I'll give you a simple example. So we work with Maxims, right? Now, Maxims has a very 1950, 1960, very traditional way of, like working with their suppliers. There will be a purchase order. You need to have the purchase order number on every delivery note and every invoice. And then once the delivery is made, there will be a signed invoice, which you need to send to Maxims along with the invoice and the payment term. And then you'll get the payment 45 days later. AI does it all for us. We have a single human doesn't touch it. So it is that you can adapt to old age businesses who are unwilling to change with at least your approach with AI and how you can evolve with it. So we really apply AI in the backend systems. I still hate the idea of writing emails with AI because I think it destroys the whole purpose of a personalized email. So I still very much like LinkedIn posts and Instagram posts and email. I personally like to write myself, but we're integrating a lot of AI on the marketing side, like editing, enabling, and then a lot on the admin side.
My question is actually to your earlier point that you talked about conscious capitalism, which I thought was really interesting because I would also love to hear your thoughts on that. I feel like that's not yet the majority of how business operate. So how do you kind of approach that? Because in some way you are the pioneer in your own lane and we don't know what we don't know at times. And you can seek out mentorship and surround yourself with community. But so much so, there is going to be times where you feel that block. So how do you navigate that to stay grounded in that way?
I think you have to create your own rules, right? Like there are no rules of conscious capitalism of what you can and what you cannot do, right? It is because this is a term which is not public. This is a term which doesn't have a definition. So I decide what is conscious and what is not conscious. But I think that links back to the idea of purpose, right? That for me, I'm doing it for the right reasons. That's why my conscious capitalism and the decisions I'm taking as part of it are in line with this idea of conscious capitalism. But yes, it always helps to bounce off ideas with mentors. It always helps to, consult people. I really believe in the power of ask, right? If I don't know something, just simply ask and you'll get to know about it. So at Breer, we really take the approach that whatever decisions we're taking, we will always consider the impact on the larger society and the larger audience as a result of that decision. And if we are okay personally to be able to see that will create, that amount of impact, we are okay with it. But it's overall as a business, are we doing enough for the planet with our products, with our missions, with our educational initiatives, everything? I think that's what makes us sleep better at night. So there's no rule, there's no playbook, there's no guidebook. I think it's just in general about how you approach it, but you have to approach it with the right intent.
Naman, I think I'm struck by the intentionality that you have, the clarity and the responsibility that you approach your business with. And, you said early on in this discussion that you're not smart, and I think that's a mistake.
I still don't think I'm smart, actually.
I think that understanding that other people know more on a lot of things doesn't mean you're not smart. It actually means that you know what you know and you know what you don't know. And I think that that's an incredibly important thing for any entrepreneur.
Self-awareness is very important.
Well, it is. I mean, when I started my business, I knew that there were certain things that I needed on my team because I wasn't good at them.
What is one of those things? What do you think your team
two things. I knew I needed someone who was fantastic on logistics, and I knew I needed someone who was fantastic on finance.
Okay.
And I knew if I had a good finance manager that I could manage the business well.
Okay.
I understand the finance of business, but I hate dealing with it day to day.
Yeah. No, trust me, when my accountant asked me for the $17 I spent last July, I have no idea. Yeah. I have no idea where I spent those $17.
But it's like you said, when you set up your business, you want to be focusing on some of the big picture, the big thinking and driving the business forward. And I think that those were two areas that I know I'm not good at.
Yeah.
Although it's not where my passion is. I mean, if I have to do it, I can do it, but
well, some days on our job is ugly.
Absolutely.
Right? I have in those, I'm sure you lug around cases. I'm sure you lug around all of that stuff. Like it's part of the job.
Absolutely. I mean, we're pounding the pavement, selling our spirits and selling our non-alcoholic beverages. And that's just what it takes. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here on Entrepreneur Stories and keep doing what you're doing. I'm inspired by what you're doing.
And I am inspired by what you're doing.
You. And, keep inspiring people, man. It's amazing to see someone so young doing so much. And I think there's a lot that other entrepreneurs can take from this. So thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.